Going good. Second, start to 5:30 exactly. Good evening, everyone. Hello.
Hello. Hello, sorry.
Hello. Okay, I've got 5:30. I'm going to go ahead and start reading the spiel. So, due to health and safety concerns related to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted by video conference or telephone call. At least a quorum of the board will be participating by video conference or phone call. In accordance with the provisions of section 551.125 or 551.127 of the Texas Government Code that has not been suspended by order of the governor. In accordance with these suspended rules, we certify that all other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practical. At this time, we will roll call trustees to verify virtual participation of each board member. Trustees, when your name is called, please acknowledge your participation in the meeting by stating present or here. Ann Haynes, District 1.
Present.
Stafford, District 2. Dana, are you muted? Here. There she is. All right. And Kim Butcher from District 3 is here. Tish Woodruff, District 4. Here. Mike Rackley, District 5.
Here.
Lisa Cruz, District 6. Here. Roger Livingston, District 7.
Here.
All right. It's now been established that although members of the board are not gathered in a single physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference or telephone call. This meeting has been duly called and notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with law. As such, I hereby call this meeting of the Greenville Independent School Board of Trustees to order. Members of the public who desire to make comments related to this meeting are asked meeting notice to email their comments to comments@greenvilleisd.com by 5:30 p.m. today. Any written comments will be read verbatim to the board. At this time, do we have any comments?
No, ma'am.
No comments. Okay. Let me get agenda then. Dr. Liggins, will you lead us in the invocation and pledge?
Absolutely. Dear loving Father and gracious God, you are indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all of your many, many blessings. We pray for a successful start of the school year and for all of our staff members and for all of our students. Lord, we ask that you bless us abundantly as we continue to seek your wisdom, guidance, courage, and strength. Be with us, God, and be with our school board this evening during our deliberations and help them make wise decisions and let them make them in the best interest of our students, our staff, and our community. Give our principals, administrators, and teacher leaders an insight to lead with integrity, that your decisions may reflect what is right and what is good, my Lord. Help us to make decisions that are good for all and to advance our mission of educating your children. Dear Lord, grant us humility to always seek your will in everything that we say and do. Father, we also ask that you keep us safe and healthy during this pandemic. And we ask all of these things in your precious Son's name, Jesus. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Next item, open forum and public comment for agenda items. I guess we determined we don't have those. Unless something has changed. So hearing no changes, we'll move to number 3, comments from individual board members. Anybody have anything to say? I hear nothing. So wave frantically if you're muted. I don't see anybody waving. Okay. Later. Then we'll move to number 4, reports and discussion items, starting with the superintendent report.
Board President Dr. Butcher, members of the board, for today's report, I'd like to highlight the fact that we last week started back school, and everyone came back for the first time. Our teachers returned, and all of our paraprofessionals, so 100% of our staff are now working. We did have our convocation on the next slide on Tuesday morning. It was a pre-recorded conversation, but we also, I was surprised with a huge celebration afterwards, where there were literally hundreds of people drove by in cars, and it was just really with signs and everything. It was the most surprising, first of all, and overwhelming experience to be blessed with such great gratitude. And also, as you can see, the debut of our new charter bus was came around in that parade. So it was a lot of fun. The Channel 8 even picked it up on their news. We also sent out an employee survey, which we always do after a convocation at the beginning of the school year, to ask a few questions. And I believe that ended today, and I will get you the results of those in our next heads up next Sunday. Moving on, we also started last Monday. We started this Monday actually. This was the original date to start school. So when the calendar was changed, it was we moved forward with still providing students with meals during this time that parents were expecting for them to be at school. And so we're giving out multiple meals at once and they don't necessarily even have to be students. It's just like the summer feeding program where they're 0 to 18. On Monday, they're getting meals all the way up, breakfast and a lunch all the way up until Wednesday, and then Wednesday they get it for Wednesday through Friday. And finally, our registration numbers as of today, we have 72% of our students who have actually completed their registration and committed. And of those numbers, for 3rd through 8th grade, we have 7% of those students choosing the hybrid model. Those who are choosing 100% at school are 53%, and 40% are choosing to stay at home full time. And you'll hear a little bit more about that, but for whichever model they've chosen, we have a very robust platform for them to learn and to be successful this school year. So that concludes my report. If there's no questions, we can move on to the next item.
I have a question. How does that registration number prior to first day of school compare to most years? What percentage do we usually get?
I don't have a direct number. An exact number for that. I would say we're probably ahead of where we are usually this far out before school starts. We usually have a huge rush right before Meet the Teacher night, because we usually don't put a kid's name on the roster until they've completed registration. And so, and we haven't had Meet the Teacher night yet, so I think it's probably a pretty, probably higher than usual, but I'll find out the exact numbers for the last 2 years where we were and let you know.
Okay, and move on then to school leadership and support. First item regarding the handbook and student expectations.
Yes, for this portion, I'd like to call Herbert O'Neill, our Chief School Leadership Officer.
Good afternoon, President Dr. Butcher, Dr. Liggins, board members. Thank you for giving me this opportunity today to talk about our student handbook and also some student expectations that I want to just update you all on tonight. First, just as our student code of conduct, our student handbook is a document that's pushed down from the state, pushed down from CASD, sent down a model handbook. And this year, they used that process to clarify some of their processes and make some revisions that make it easier for parents and students to read. One of the things that I've noticed about the handbook and the student code of conduct both is that they're sort of shrinking. They're taking a lot of jargon out and making it very easy to read for parents. But they do have some updates in there. There are not any district updates that we've made this year, but some of the updates that they added. First of all, they've added information about mental health. And so they've included procedures about how to recommend intervention for a student regarding mental health, or how can the parent recommend intervention for a student regarding mental health, substance abuse, or risk of attempting suicide. And throughout the document, there's a lot of information, a lot of added information about mental health. They're really putting an emphasis on how we care for our students' mental well-being. The district will also have to annually offer instruction in CPR to at least once the students in grades 7 through 12. The good thing is we spent some time last year preparing for this because we found out through the legislative updates that our students would have to learn CPR. So we were beginning to get a process for that. Of course, we didn't get to finish this because of COVID. We will begin that process again this week. And beyond the CPR, students in grades 7 through 12 will also have to give instruction on how to use breathing control stations to respond to traumatic injury. So when something happens and someone starts bleeding uncontrollably, our students will learn sort of a protocol about what to do when they see that happen. So we've already started that process, and we'll work with nurse bars and our safety team to make sure that happens by the close of the school year. And speaking about the handbook, the handbook ties in with our student code of conduct. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time today to talk about something that was updated a year ago, just prior to me coming here to Brangel ISD, and it's something that I love, and I think it's a great thing, and I think more districts need to do it. And I want to talk about our tiered discipline model. One of the things that Greenville ISD, as it has grown and we've had more choice programs across the district, parents may have students at one campus, they may have students at another campus. And maybe you've seen in the past that, well, when this happened at one campus, this happened, or if my student did this at another campus, then they got this particular discipline. And so one of the things that the tiered discipline model is made to do is to increase consistency across the district as it relates to discipline. And so whenever misbehavior occurs, which unfortunately it will occur, we want to be more consistent at every campus in how we apply discipline. And so discipline here in the district is to improve conduct and to encourage students to adhere to their responsibilities so that they can be positive members of our school community. And so through that, the district created this tiered discipline model. And I want to be clear about one thing about this model is what it does is it gives teachers also the authority to give that discipline when misbehavior occurs, especially at the tier 1 level. Teachers shouldn't feel that they shouldn't be able to be able to give discipline to students. They can do that within themselves, within their own classroom, versus sending that out in the beginning. Discipline in GISD should be based on the following things: the seriousness of the offense, the student's age, the grade level, the frequency of the misbehavior, their level of remorse for the misbehavior. How do they deal with that particular consequence when it's given? The effects of the misconduct on the school environment, and other statutory requirements that are related to items that may be in the student code of conduct. talk about that, I'd like to move into some examples of our three-tiered process here at Greenville ISD. First, tier one, and I put this in here again, is that it empowers teachers to use tier one discipline processes to address misbehavior in their classroom. And some of those tier one examples, when teachers have students who are misbehaving, of course, they can give verbal correction, they can change seating, they can have counseling with the student. Also, they can assign detention. And of course, that's a campus set up how the campus would have it to be set up, but they're able to assign lunch detention, detentions before school or after school, and students can always lose their privileges that they have within that classroom. And again, that's not something that the teacher has to send out. That teacher can give that discipline to that student right there when it's needed. The next level is tier two. And so some of the examples of tier two is behavior modification contracts or improvement plans, parent-teacher conference. Maybe that teacher or that administrator gets the parents to come. They get the parents to come in and visit with them about that misbehavior. Also, they could send the student to the office to visit with the administrator, the assistant principal, to talk about that misbehavior. And then when it escalates to a level that maybe a parent conference or detention can't take care of, then that student will be given in-school suspension, or what we commonly call ISS. Of course, ISS is an area within the school building that they spend some time being redirected outside of the regular class. And then the final phase of this particular tiered discipline model is tier three. And these are, those type of consequences that will come in at the end when we've exhausted all of our other discipline models. And so first, they could be assigned to an alternative setting, mediation, out-of-school suspension, which is OSS. That's when the student is removed from the school for a maximum of 3 days. Here's something that's kind of big. It's a revocation of transfer. Maybe the student is in a choice program that has moved them from their home campus. And so if there is a lot of misbehavior and it has moved towards this tier three level, the student can be removed from that GISD choice program and sent back to their home campus. And the final two consequences are those that they're the ones that we do not want to send our students to. And that's, of course, our disciplinary alternative education program, DAEP, we call it GAP here in Greenville. And the worst thing that breaks our hearts when it has to happen to a student, and that's expulsion. And so those are, that's a tier three example. And so, again, this is set up and again to remove some of the inconsistencies that we have across the campus. So making sure that our principals understand about our different tiers and making sure that we are sticking to those as we give consequences to students for this behavior. Finally, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Think it over so I can see you, because the way my screen is set up, I can't really see your face. Okay, I was curious, how many times does a student stay in tier one before they go into tier two? And is that reliant on the teacher or is that reliant on the principal?
It depends. So a teacher, of course, one of the things I talked about early on, it talks about frequency of misbehavior. So the teachers many times will give the students multiple times or make corrections multiple times in the classroom before they move to a tier two. Generally, a tier two, a lot of the tier two type consequences are things that they would send the student to the office for. So if a teacher is having a student who, let's say, keeps getting up out of his seat without permission, the teacher spoke to him, maybe she wrote it in the log, maybe he or she does it again. Maybe they give you a call and let you know about that. And when they give you that call, they may say, well, the next time that this happens, we're going to have to speak to the assistant principal. And then at that point, that's when that student would move to tier two. And of course, there are times when things do happen, when you skip straight to a tier 3 or straight to a tier 2, depending on what the particular misbehavior is.
So it is purely dependent on the teacher then. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
I'm purely dependent on the teacher.
Well, of course, there are things that would, let's just say this: if a student were to use profanity out loud in class, that's something that could move directly to the principal. But most classroom type misbehaviors, at the beginning, it is left up to the teacher. Students talking too much, maybe the student gets rude with another peer or something like that. That is something where the teacher can really deal with it. But of course, if the teacher feels that it's something that they are unable to deal with, they're going to get that particular assistance from that assistant principal. Or
Right? A through second. We're stuck in tier 1 and 2, correct?
pretty much, and we didn't spend a lot of time. I didn't spend much time talking about that. And when I say stuff, I don't know if it's necessarily just stuff, but they can't be given out of school suspension. K through 2, those students cannot be removed from the school environment unless it's just a total someone is in fear of their safety or something like that.
So I have an example for you.
Mm-hmm.
Have because you've given some examples, and I want to give you a different one. So you have a child, let's say in the first grade, who is out of control, running around the hallways. The teachers are not allowed to touch the student. They're only allowed to follow the student. At that point, if it happens multiple times, what is the course of action for the school? What would happen? What would you suggest?
Well, what I always suggest, we want to make sure our parents are partners with our students. And unfortunately, there are students that have misbehavior that in grades K1 and 2 that um, it's something that they may have to be removed from the classroom. And that's when we want to get those parents involved. And sometimes we have to call those parents and say, we need someone to come up right at this time. And that kind of puts people out sometimes, unfortunately. But we need someone to come in and to assist us right away. And so that's one of the things that we go to oftentimes when we have an issue with misbehavior that's escalated for students that are in grades K1 and 2.
Sometimes, Ms. Cruz, it could deal with the fact that if they have a disability or they are in the testing to see if their behavior is caused by disability. We have something called a manifestation determination. So a student, if their behavior is a manifestation of their disability, what's acceptable for one student, we can't punish the kid because they're quote unquote misbehaving because of the disability they have. And so it becomes very touchy when at those grade levels, because quite often those kids are undiagnosed and we're going through the process of seeing if they have a disability. And the moment we're seeing if they have a disability, they have the same protection as if they have a disability until it's determined whether or not they actually have a disability or not.
So in that circumstance, what happens when they've disrupted the classroom so many times and that the other children cannot learn because of the disruption? What happens? They could see our hands are tied. I think we've talked about this before. I feel like it's kind of deja vu, but I hate to say it again, but I guess I just need a reminder of it. So is our hands tied in that circumstance?
For the most part, until they have completed all of their evaluation and it's determined that they indeed do have a disability, then at that point, they can be removed to an alternative setting that's under special ed. But due to special ed laws, it takes a while to do that just so that we're not overcrowding special ed with kids that are just having a bad day. So you have to document various instances and various interventions that have been done in order to show that this is a consistent issue. And then once psychologists are finally gets around to the testing, all of that's taken into consideration. But it is unfortunately an ordeal, and it's something that we unfortunately have to deal with and try to minimize as much as possible.
So this discipline, is it called restorative discipline?
No, restorative discipline is a program.
Do we do that in our district? Is that what we do?
No, ma'am, we don't do restorative discipline. We adopt the capturing kids' heart philosophy.
I didn't know if that was part of that program.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How soon can a child get counseling with our extra folks that we hired last year? Can that be done almost immediately?
Yes, ma'am. As soon as they need it. That's kind of one of the things that they've been adding to the handbook, talking about mental health and how we support those students. Our teachers should be looking for signs for students. Other students can cry out, and students at any time can go and let a counselor know that they would like to talk. And teachers or administrators can refer students to the counselor at any time. Thank you.
Other questions?
Did I hear, I think I heard a lady say that if you have a K through 2 student who is running amok up and down the hall, you cannot touch that student. A teacher cannot touch that. Is that so?
Well, it's common practice in general to not touch students at all.
Yeah.
But there is the ideal practice is unless they are hurting themselves or others putting themselves in danger, you do not touch them. The idea is to remove all of those things around them to put them out of dangerous way. Sometimes that unfortunately looks like removing the class because the kid is destroying the classroom. It really, unfortunately, in today's litigious world, it just puts teachers at risk to touch a kid, and then we find ourselves where we're dealing with a teacher that a parent's saying that they abused their child or picked them up in a manner that they shouldn't have or did that. So it's really more so for the teacher's protection and the child's protection, but it's a tough situation when you find yourself with a kid who is having a difficult time, and especially at that young age that you can't fairly reason with.
Any other questions?
I have one about the update. When they teach the kids CPR, would it also be possible to put in the Heimlich maneuver?
I don't know about that. I can definitely look into that. I can look at and see what we have to do, and I can get with Nurse Bars to see if that's something that we can. I will get back. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to what's going on district operations during the COVID-19 pandemic.
For this particular presentation, I have a few people presenting, but I'd like to start with Ms. Sharon Booth, Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning.
Thank you. President Dr. Butcher, Superintendent Dr. Liggins, members of the board, thank you for providing us time to speak tonight. The report for the mission of Greenville ISD is alive and well in spite of the COVID pandemic. Our mission has always been to make sure that every child is taught. With And we believe that we continue with that objective to meet their highest academic achievement, and that every teacher shall be equipped to provide the teaching that must take place for students to meet this goal. And it continues to be our primary focus. So, if you'll allow me, I'd like to take a little quick walk back. In March, we all went on spring break, looking forward to spring break and knowing that the Monday after spring break, we would come back and plan and finish the year out strong. Then, as we all know, we all lived it. We got the news that school was closed, the students would be taught remotely, and teachers would have to teach from home. So we were faced with a learning roadblock that we've never experienced before. And with minimal to no access to resources or the classroom, teaching and learning determined that they could assist in a planning process by developing lessons that incorporate the remainder of the year's learning objectives, which in turn would allow teachers to focus on the individual student, making sure that learning was occurring. So lessons were developed for all grade levels, learning packets were printed and distributed to teachers and students throughout the remainder of the school year. Every week, we were all hoping that we would be able to return to what would be normal. So we were very thankful that we were able to maintain our mission of teaching and learning. But we did recognize the fact that the teaching tools, resources, and means of delivery were not ideal. So we took the month of June to reflect and revise our mission as it relates to the virtual world that has become our new norm. The learning platform that we're launching on September 8th to our students is much more robust, is specific to students' needs, and supportive of the teachers' needs to teach all students to ensure that every child obtains a year's growth. That planning in June took on 3 phases. The first thing we did was we looked at every learning objective for every grade level that was being taught remotely March 2020 to May 2020. Those learning objectives from the prior school year were put into this coming school year's pacing guide and learning objectives to ensure that those parts that were taught March through May were added back into the pacing guide for the new school year, so we would make sure we filled those gaps. Then the state introduced 2 new learning terms, asynchronous and synchronous. So asynchronous would provide for any student pre-K through second whose parents opted to keep the kids at home. And synchronous would be 3rd grade through 12th grade, allowing the students to stay home, enjoying the same lessons the students at school would receive via internet and simultaneously. So that required us to make sure that our pacing guides could meet both needs. Then our pacing guides and curriculum resources were adjusted to make sure that teachers were provided lesson ideas, resources, and engagement offerings to meet every child's learning needs. Simultaneously, we put together a learning webpage to train teachers on virtual classroom tools and resources. And this next week, we will be rolling out a webpage to assist parents and students on all things virtual classroom. So, and thanks to you, the school board's commitment to teaching and learning, we purchased additional Chromebooks and hotspots to make sure that the accessibility of the internet and the learning tools were available for all students in GISD. We developed a protocol which allows us to test students whose teachers and their parents have requested additional qualification assessments for gifted and talented, dyslexia and special ed. We started that in July and August as we put into account social distancing and making sure that we were able to test those students so we would know what they needed for the beginning of the school year. And once again, our school board, demonstrated very courageous leadership to approve a new school calendar that afforded us a valuable time to train as well as practice on new virtual teaching platforms, prepare our campuses for safety for our children and our employees, and provide adequate time to plan some more. Thank you for that. And this week, we are developing class rosters that ensure balanced class sizes. Now that a large number of our parent choices have been selected between hybrid, classroom, and home learning platforms. And as you know, Dr. Liggins reported those numbers. And then I just wanted to share a graphic that kind of talks about those three platforms. So hybrid is most prominent in the high school, and we're going to have A days and B days for every student. So half the students will be in school on A day, and half the students will be at school on B day. But every single day, they will be receiving instruction from their teacher, either virtually, online, or in person. And we have gone to an 8-period class at the high school in order to help us teach children every single day. And then 3 through 8, we also are really pre-K through 12. We have the in-person model. And so that's just like it was when they left in March. And then we have some parents that are opting for the online and stay at home. And so we're preparing for that as well. Let's see, Mr. O'Neill? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Booth. I definitely appreciate that, because out of all that we have going on, the most important thing that we do is we teach and our students learn. We've got to remember that through all of this, that our students have got to learn. One of the things, the main thing that we've been working on in school leadership with our principals is trying to figure out and make happen how we're going to have a great school year with our students who show up in person. So after we came up with our guidelines for our district, we developed elementary and secondary handbooks for our campuses to ensure that we have a smooth entry into the school when we start on September 8th. That handbook lists all of our procedures that are applicable to in-person learning. How do we enter the campus? How do we have breakfast, lunch? How do we transition in the hallway? PE, recess, and other items that are very important. We've also created a procedures checklist so that our principals could know any situation that has to happen, how are we going to handle it? And so, of course, some of our items were standardized, but some are different for each campus. Why would they be different? Some campuses have different exits, and the amount of entrances and exits are different on each particular campus. And also the way we transition at our campuses are different. Our principals have spent a large amount of time preparing again for the return of our students. We've also created standardized signage for all campuses that clearly state the determined expectations. There are a lot of things that we're going to have to teach our students, and our teachers are going to have to model for our students. And not only will they teach it and model it, but they'll also see it as they move across the campus. We've also spent time making detailed counts to figure out how many students can we fit safely in the cafeteria, or the gymnasium, or in other large common areas of our school. Some of the things that we've also done, of course, we have a screening system set up for each staff member each time they enter the campus. We have to know and make sure that our teachers are in good health when they enter the building every day. So there's a self-screen that they have to go through on each campus that they do before they get to school every morning. They have to make sure that they check themselves and that they check out. That goes to the principal and to the campus nurse. Every morning, every staff member has to self-screen. Also, we will not utilize water fountains this year at our campus. Students will be allowed to bring their own water bottle each day to the school. Now, here's something that we've done, and appreciate our superintendent for ensuring that we have a good tracking system for our employees. And so what do you mean by tracking? Unfortunately, we could have a staff member or a student that has a lab-confirmed positive COVID test, or an individual who has to go into quarantine. Well, we're going to ensure that we track those students. Those students are staff members. We know the day that they leave. We know that the amount of days that they have to be out, or we know when they are able to return back to the campus. Maybe they left and they had a positive test, and they've gone back and they've gotten another test and it's negative. Well, we're going to track that so that we know exactly when the person leaves and when they're able to return. And we also have established protocols for every possible scenario that would take place in a normal school year. There are so many things that happen day to day in the campus, and if it is to happen, we've thought about it, and our principals have prepared. Finally, I would like to talk a little bit about food service. We have virtual students who will be, as we talked about earlier, students who will be having virtual schools. Virtual students will have individually wrapped grab-and-go meals that will be picked up at a set time on each campus. Our food service vendor, Sodexo, is customizing their meal service based on the needs of the individual campus. And we say that the individual campus, because some meals may have to be eaten in the classroom. Some schools have had to have additional lunch periods in order to accommodate student safety. So Sodexo will work with the campus to ensure that the best food service plans are present for that campus. And we'll make sure that we have hand sanitizer available at every entrance, exit to all of our cafeterias. And at this time, I would like to call Dr. Greg Henderson for maintenance.
We all realize that students cannot learn effectively if they're not here. The only way that they can remain in school is to be able to be in an environment that's clean and healthy. And so as far as custodial care, we have, with our new service, brought in about $175,000 worth of equipment to be spread out across the district and each of the facilities so that they have their own cleaning items. The cleaners that we use throughout the district are now EPA rated as viricides so that they destroy the virus when it comes in contact with it. We will be increasing the frequency of our cleaning and disinfecting of all the high traffic areas throughout the district. And we especially have a focus on cleaning touch points during the day by using day porters who will work on cleaning doorknobs, light switches, railings, countertops, and things that students come into contact with on a regular basis. The deep cleaning will take place in the evenings after the students have gone home, when there's time to be able to disinfect the classrooms with our electrostatic sprayers, and then we'll go back and wipe out everything with the viricide. Go to the next slide, please. As far as transportation, all the buses are going to be cleaned and sprayed with an electrostatic sprayer that contains that EPA-rated viricide, both in the morning and the afternoon after those rounds have been run. The students will be providing hand sanitizer by the bus driver when they're boarding, and they'll have opportunities to use hand sanitizer when they exit the bus or they go into the school building. Our students will be required to wear masks while they're traveling on all school transportation. And we will encourage social distancing of non-family members when they're on the school bus. We believe that because our survey has shown that 80% of our parents plan on transporting their own students to school, that will reduce the overall number of students riding the bus, therefore allowing us to have greater ability to social distance students when they're sitting on the bus. As far as maintenance and grounds, our employees are required to wear masks when they're in the building, when they're in proximity of less than 6 feet with each other. They'll be going throughout the buildings to change out and check our HVAC filters on a regular basis. And they have been installing in our main entrances, high traffic areas, soap dispensers, hand sanitizers. They will be assisting us in the future as we install in each classroom our own hand sanitizing dispenser, and then making sure that we keep those full and replacing those that become damaged or missing. And then in general, we are purchasing hand sanitizing dispensers for each classroom, make sure that they are available for our students, spray bottles, paper towels, and that viricide for our teachers to be able to use to wipe down desks and other high touch areas within each classroom and between class settings. And then our state has issued us PPE supplies for both teachers and students. We've already picked up our first shipment of 5 pallets, including masks, face shields, thermometers, gloves, and hand sanitizer. And then we will be going back on Tuesday to pick up our second shipment from the state and have distributed to the campuses their first phase of their allotment. And at this point, I believe we have Nurse Lars who will be presenting to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, and members of the board. I'm here just to report to you on the health services additional operations to help us operate safely during COVID-19. But the most important resource that we have right now is a nurse on every campus, and I recognize that the board has made this a priority, and we thank you very much that we have nurses on every campus to help take care of everyone. Thank you, board, for recognizing that importance. The nurse's role is to provide assessment of symptoms, referral, and implementation of the plan of action for anyone exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms while they are on campus. They also are providing staff training in COVID procedures, so that is ongoing at this point in time. They're reminding the teachers how to wash their hands with that 20 seconds and how important that is to actually destroy that virus. And that's what occurs with hand washing. Also to train them in the importance of wearing the mask, how to put the mask on, how to take it off in a clean way and dispose of it at the end of the day. And also in social distancing, just remind them how important that is. We also are training them in new procedures for sending students to the clinic to minimize close contact and maintain infection control in our nursing clinics. Some of our new clinic operations, we will have a well clinic area and a sick clinic area in order to prevent crossover and cross-contamination during the day and the clinic operation. And our well clinic area will be designated for scheduled and as-needed medications and for scheduled procedures and treatment of injuries and first aid. The sick clinic area will be for students exhibiting illness symptoms during the day. The nurse will wear additional PPE when entering that area and then remove that PPE when she comes out. Her additional PPE will be a gown. She will have a gown to put on in addition to her mask, gloves when entering the sick clinic area. And we will utilize barriers routinely in the clinic to prevent cross-contamination, curtains, shields, and first. I've also asked the nurses to perform disinfection of touch surfaces in the clinic after every student visit. So we'll have a check-off sheet for them to record that they have done cleanup in the clinic after every student has come to school. We're also maintaining frequent contact with local health authorities, and we will continue to receive updates and adjust our operating procedures accordingly. And the county has stated that they will do contact tracing to help us with positive cases. We also will report to them anytime we become aware of a lab-confirmed case of COVID-19 that they are not already aware of. We also have a designated staff person to respond to COVID-19 concerns. Anybody guess who that might be? That will be myself. And I'm working with communications to get a button on our main website so that parents and staff members can just hit that health services button and go directly to the information that they need without having to wade through our menus. Some of our resources that we have for staff is we have a standing order with Hunt Regional Labs for employee COVID testing. So an employee can go and get tested without having to go through their physician. We also have a list of approved testing sites that we're going to get published for families and staff in Hunt County. In Greenville specifically, CVS Pharmacy, Quest Diagnostics, and Baylor Medical. And so what if I receive a phone call from a parent on Wednesday that says that her daughter had a fever Monday night They kept her home Tuesday, but went to the doctor, and she has turned out to be COVID positive. She's a second grader. So at that point in time, we would have to notify everyone in the classroom, personally notify the close contacts so that they can stay home for 14 days in quarantine as well as the teacher. Then we would notify the entire campus. Anytime there is a positive case on campus, we have to notify all staff and families on that campus so that they can monitor themselves more closely and continue with their self-assessment before they come to school. So they know the risk has increased just a little bit because we had a positive case for them, or in two, keep track of their procedures. Close contacts will have to stay home for 14 days until they pass that infection period. In case of an employee who calls in that they are experiencing headache, cough, a little bit of difficulty breathing, those are all classic signs and symptoms of COVID-19. They would be required to stay home. We would speak with them about their close contacts so that we can notify any of their close contacts, and they would need to go see their doctor and follow their doctor's instructions, and then they would not return until they met the return to school requirements. Again, we will have to notify everybody on campus, all staff and families, and the students in that classroom will have to go into alternative teaching situations, which I don't have that all memorized. I know that our rapid response team does have those procedures all set in place. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, well, if there's no questions, then I would like to introduce Dr. Colleen Netterville, our Director of wrong category. Dr. Netterville, our Chief of Human Resources.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Thank you. So in addition to the regular operating procedures that Human Resources oversees, our department is going to support staff. As we go through the unknown territory, we have processes and procedures that we have distributed to all staff should they come in contact with someone who has COVID or if they've tested positive or have symptoms. And the processes are very outlined in detail so they know exactly who to contact and what to do, what those expectations might be. Along with that, we have a couple of new federal laws that have been implemented in order to take care of our staff. If they have to quarantine for 14 days for any reason, they have access to emergency paid sick leave, which allocates 10 days of paid leave for them while they're on quarantine. Additional leave is approved if they need FMLA for an extended period of time, and this could be COVID related, it could be related to their children who are not in school, or to their children's daycare that closed. And so we have a lot of opportunities to support our staff in different ways. Additionally, if an employee is exposed while at work, we will notify everybody that has been in contact with that employee throughout the day and what the process will be for that. We're going to follow all established PPA and CDC guidelines to support employees return to work to ensure that they are safe to come back. And those are changed periodically so we continue to monitor closely to see if any changes are in place. We coordinate very closely with health services. We track, inform, and monitor our employees throughout the leave so we can watch trends and use that data and those locations to go in and clean and to improve what's going on. We're always looking for good substitutes. This year will be unusual for us, and so we are reaching out in every avenue to try to speak with every substitute, see if they are willing to virtual classes or in-person classes, and get them lined up for that should that become necessary. Another unique option this year is that the law requires districts to release teachers or any staff from their contracts this year at any point in time during the school year due to any type of COVID concern or health issues that they may have to leave.
All right, thank you. Next up is Ms. Ella Williams.
Dr. Vanderbilt,
Yes.
are you saying that at any point the teacher can just say that they have coronavirus or COVID-19 concern and they will be allowed to get out of their contract?
Yes. Yes. And that's statewide implemented through December, I believe.
We unmute William. Also, if the teacher has to go out for 14 days in November, and then another child gets sick and their class quarantine again, do they get an additional 10 days to be out, or does that come under?
I'm sorry. At that point, they would have to use their personal days. They're all given an additional 10 days this year for that circumstance.
Okay, can you unmute Ms. Williams, please? Or is it?
She should be able to unmute herself.
That doesn't work. There we go. There we go. Thank you.
So from a communication standpoint, in addition to all of our usual work, we've really been focusing on COVID-19, informing our staff and our students and families and community about what we're doing for back to school. And you could see that in our convocation program this year. Everything's different this year. So we had our very first online virtual convocation, and we've gotten some really great feedback from staff. Probably the most common comment was, we really miss being together, but they understood. So we have a back to school video that really gives a personal testimony from viewpoints of her principal, nurse bars, and then our technology chief, talking about how we have been preparing and not just having an FAQ, another link to the state documents, but really telling the story from trusted individuals who are here in Greenville ISD, and as I say in the video, are here to stay. So we have that. We do have the infographics and the Sue showed earlier that clearly explain different options for learning. We have buttons that people can go very quickly to the places that are most relevant for their students to find out what is happening, along with an FAQ that really covers all the questions that we have received, and then the link to TA guidelines. And one thing that's handy about the TEA links is when the TEA updates their information, it automatically updates. The links are consistent. And the back to school page is high profile. It's available on 2 places on our landing page, so you're easily able to find it. Of course, we're always listening to our community to find out what it is that they're wondering about the most, to ask them for their ideas and gather their input. And that really speaks to our planning. We do email, social media, website. We have a lot of success with targeted messages where we're not simply stating, hey, the FAQ is updated. To read it, press here. For example, today we knew that some parents had been concerned about how are we going to be able to pick up our devices, and we pay attention to what other districts have been dealing with, and we knew that there were some challenges with picking up and delivery of devices for students, and so we put together, with the help of our technology chief, an FAQ specifically about that, and released that just today, working with nurse bars on one about where will I hear about health updates from the district. And we have a designated email, and we're putting together a message just for staff because theirs is slightly slightly different from what we're sharing with our community and with our parents. We've been doing a lot of surveys that relate to COVID. Here are 6 starting in May, asking everything from learning option preferences to what would make them feel safe. What do they feel like we need to do in order for them to return and most feel safe? We've gotten a lot of great insights from those. And looking forward to school starting, we have pre-written letters for the various scenarios. And as I mentioned earlier, we have established a health services email so that principals who are very busy dealing with whatever is happening on their campus, they can rely on nurse bars, and there's several others of us who are cross-trained in using the health services email. So they know if it comes from health services, that is going to be the topic. So we're working on that this week with nurse bars.
All right. Thank each and every one of you for your valuable input on that presentation. Very nice. Any other questions for anyone? No? Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll all have questions as we proceed, and we will answer them one at a time.
Okay, Butcher, I did want to say, just on behalf of all of us, that we really thank the school board for the support, for the courage that you all have demonstrated. And I think it's a difficult situation. There are so many challenges, meticulous planning, but that we do feel the support and appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Got your back.
Thank you.
I have one question about math versus skills. Are students required to just wear masks, or are they allowed to wear shields instead?
We've identified it as simply a face covering. So should a student decide simply to wear a shield, that is acceptable.
Will teachers be wearing shields and masks, or will they be able to also choose?
They can also choose. I've seen some teachers who are wearing both, but it's individual choice.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to C, Human Resources, the GISD Employee Handbook. Yes, Ms. Scully.
Good evening, President Dr. Butcher, Dr. Liggins, members of the board. Thank you for an opportunity to present tonight. I'm excited about the information I'm going to share with you. We're going to start with a simple item, and that is the 2020-2021 Employee Handbook. This is a discussion item, and much like the student handbook, GISD gives us a sample handbook each year, and we go in and update it and personalize it to meet our personal needs here in Greenville ISD. So I've given you a slide. Most of the things we've done are simple improvements for ease of use for our staff. We've added a few links in the handbook so that they can get to websites, forms, and access that procedures and processes, so it's easier for them to where they need to be without going through 2 or 3 different people. We've clarified some processes. Sometimes it's good to add a little bit of wording to clarify what you're saying in the handbook so that everybody's on the same page. And then additionally, we reference some procedures from other documents. Often, department might have a simple handbook and campuses. We have accounting handbook, teacher contract, salary schedule. We try to put pertinent information from those documents all into the employee handbook as well. And again, just for ease of use for our staff. If you look below those bullets, there's a statement. We've added that. First, I want to say thank you to the school board for your resolution this last year. You voted to continue to pay our employees their salary and their stipend
are working remotely. This is a policy that was common across the state, but as we go into the school year, we want to be proactive and use fiscal responsibility as we're looking at that. So we've added the statement to our handbook, to salary verification sheets, and stipend requests. And it simply states if you don't fulfill your duties, you won't receive your stipend. Any questions?
Hearing none, we can move on to number 2, exit recruitment and retention survey.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. I will move right on in. This is something that I'm excited to present. We get a lot of good information and we use that to improve our services. So I want to begin this by just saying that the primary responsibility of the Human Resources Department is to support our staff, district-wide, every single employee. One way we do that is by recruiting and retaining the absolute best teachers. But it's also our responsibility to protect the district, the students, and staff by ensuring that all directors and administrators follow all district policies and all laws are implemented. So oftentimes I may get a call and say, hey, I've got this situation, what can I do? And I'm the one that my department and I check policy and procedure, ensure we're following that as we move forward. Human Resources partners very closely with the principals, directors, and supervisors. We provide guidance and information to make sure we do all things appropriately and according to our established procedures. This data that I'm going to share with you tonight is shared with HR through anonymous surveys. We had 62 respondents this year, and I will say this is good news. A lot of the information we got was very positive. The quality of staff that we have in GISD is trained, they're committed, they're loyal, so it is in the district's best interest to retain them, and that's our goal. So we utilize this data to implement action plans and improvement measures based on this data. The board often looks at turnover rates. That's something that the Human Resources Department also looks very closely at. Our goal each year is to decrease teacher turnover. Unfortunately, life happens. Spouses move. People need to move closer to aging parents, or like myself, I'm following grandchildren around. So we leave for a variety of reasons. As we look at our teacher hires longevity over the last 3 years, we've actually been increasing incrementally every year, and that's good. We're making baby steps, but we are going in the right direction, so that's exciting. Greenville has a very diverse population. We don't mirror a lot of our nearby area districts. We have at-risk populations with our English language learners, our low socioeconomic students. That means a lot of our students will struggle academically. So our goal is to reach teachers that actually have a heart and passion to teach diverse learners specific to Greenville's population. One of the things we did this year was hosted our own first annual virtual job fair. We saw great success from that. It was better than any other virtual job fair we attended. We had more candidates with 67 candidates. We had not only universities attend, but other area school districts. We had alternative certification programs attending. So we had a great variety of people attended that program, and we actually made 5 hires from that job fair. Next slide. We always like to look at where our teachers left, because we view that as some of our strongest competition. And then where did they come from? Because we'll go back there and try to recruit some more over. This data is coming to you from our exit surveys, and we only reported the multiples. We had many people leave this blank, and that accounts for our retirees. And then somebody that was somebody else was pointing to, obviously we couldn't have 60 different options here, but we do review our raw data. So this data informs us for recruitment and retention. Down at the right-hand bottom column, you see where did they come from? Greenville ISD paraprofessionals. 3 of our paraprofessionals were promoted into teaching positions this year, so that was very exciting to see. We also rehired 14 staff that were previous employees of Greenville ISD. They're employed throughout the district, but 14 came back. You may notice we don't have PTAA noted in our graph, which means candidates left it blank, or there was only one person that answered that question there. So it just gives you a snapshot of the most data we have. So along with that, we know that we have some teacher turnover. We want to maintain master exemplary teachers, so we're not looking to get brand new 0-year teachers each year. So we want to look at what's the average years of experience of the teachers leaving and the average years experience for the teachers coming to us. Our goal is to be better than other districts, particularly the districts nearby. We also want to be better than the state. As we have a diverse population that doesn't mirror nearby districts, we know that we want to recruit teachers with a passion to teach diverse learners. So that's what we're looking for as we look to recruit and to retain the very best teachers out there. And we do lose a little bit. Our average for the teachers leaving was 5.05. Our teachers coming in was 4.80. So there's a little bit of a loss there. Our hope is that we provide enough professional development and training, have strong enough resources on the campus that we make up that difference. So we're always looking at salary. And thanks to the board, you've made paying a great salary a priority. And that is a huge benefit to human resources when we're recruiting and retaining our employees. So the salary scale is for first-year teachers with 0 years experience. That does not necessarily mean they're straight out of college. It may mean that they're doing an alternative certification program and changing careers. So we're always excited to get new and fresh, innovative ideas, but we also like to see that we can compete with other districts getting the best. We always want to be competitive. We're going to review this yearly, and we're so grateful to the board for making salaries a priority because we're truly competitive. So this is a lot of information. You all have a copy of the exit survey that was given to every employee. They were able to access it online this year. We actually had 62 respondents. It's great news. Looking at this slide, we are considerably above the average across the board. Our strong suit is our culture and climate, which we're thrilled with. This year, as you may recall, we hired an outside consultant to come in and do some surveys and some conversations and meet with different faculty on different campuses to get a true sense of where our culture and climate is. Because of COVID this year, they did do the final survey with faculty. This information is telling us our people are happy. The lowest is opportunity for advancement. That's not necessarily bad news. That's good news because that means we don't have a high turnover rate when we're looking at administrators and upper level positions that people are looking to promote to. So when this happens and there's not an opportunity for advancement, oftentimes they go out to a nearby district, get some more experience, and oftentimes they return. And when we have a GISD employee return back, they come to us with a new renewed sense of loyalty we feel like that's going to help us address in a huge way our teacher retention, because we'll be able to much better reward and recognize our master teachers. I'm going to give you a minute to soak this in. This is very good news. I'm very excited about this. These are teacher perceptions with them answering all of these questions against 62 respondents. We're continually looking to reward and recognize in new and creative ways every year. This data says we're doing a great job at that. That's exciting. We want to celebrate that. That doesn't mean we're not going to look to improve and excel in every way. Our culture and climate is a goal with our district improvement plan as well as every campus plan. PEA wants that to be a focus for all school districts. So this is telling us we are doing a great job at that. Even when our employees are leaving the district, they leave with a positive perception, which begs the question, why are they leaving? So when we look at why they're leaving, this data is based on individuals. It's not 20% for personal, it's 20 people, but the staff were able to identify more than one cause. It may be that their husband changed jobs to move closer to elderly parents, and that could go under relocation and personal. So we did get some multiple. Our retirements were a little bit higher than anticipated this year. Many people who were on the fence with retirement ended up deciding it was time to retire because they felt like they were at risk at their age to come into the classroom. So in looking at this information, the data points we want to focus on for improvement measures is job dissatisfaction. So why are they dissatisfied? Because that's what we want to really focus all of our energy on. We would like that to be zero. So what can we do to improve? Well, one of the things we're implementing this year due to that information is the Human Resources Department is going to implement focus groups. We are going to have the principals identify 2 faculty on each staff to meet with HR on a monthly basis. We don't want to wait till the end of the year and say, oh no, that data wasn't really great. We want to be more proactive. If something's not going well, if there is a concern, if there just needs to be better communication to help our employees feel supported, we want to know that right away because we can make immediate changes and implement action plans to improve what we're doing so that next year we'll have 0 under job dissatisfaction in our survey. We're very excited about implementing that in September of this year and ongoing. So what did you like most about the district? Again, this is individual answers, but they could select multiple answers and it was open-ended. So they may mention as they're filling this out 2 or 3 different items under this question. We're always looking and working to improve everything listed here. These are all of the things that are on the radar for human resources to implement and improve. It's a part of our strategic improvement plan. This information tells us our culture is good, which we've seen consistently throughout over and over again. Our adults, our staff love each other. The culture is great. They appreciate their principals. The thing I want to focus on with some of this information, one of the things we want to focus on is we'd like to see that percentage with the student buyer. When we interview teachers, we always want to hear them say they love the students. We exist because of the students. I live to serve the students. So we want to see that passion for the students increasing as much as their love for their peers and their colleagues, which is great. We want to see the students raise up a little bit. So when we're recruiting teachers, we're looking for teachers who love Greenville ISD students, our students with demographics. We're also focusing on the social emotional component of all of our students and our staff this year. We're looking to improve relationships between colleagues, between administrators and staff, and between staff and students. So we're really got a big focus on relationships. Capturing kids' hearts plays right into those goals that have already been implemented. And again, every new teacher will be trained on how to implement capturing kids' hearts. So we look at recruitment initiatives. What can we improve? What can we do? We implemented Wellbeing. Thank you, school board. I was very excited about implementing that. I don't think I've ever seen another initiative that was so highly praised and so well received. We've continued all year long to get positive feedback, and we used our newsletters to get some feedback on that. I expected to present to you tonight and say, due to Wellbeing, we use fewer substances. That in fact is true. We use fewer substances, but I think it had more to do with words virtually than Wellbeing. But thank you anyway. The board has also agreed for sign-on and loyalty incentives, and this is something we discussed last year. Every single person will receive an incentive in September, and it's really a great way that the board is just able to say thank you, we appreciate you, we value you, and as also a new recruitment and retention tool so human resources is grateful. Thank you as well for the competitive salaries. I just want to recognize that Greenville has a lower tax rate than most school districts, and yet we're at the top of the pay scale. So thanks to your fiscal responsibility, you have done a lot more with a lot less, and we're grateful for that. It's a priority for you, and it's a priority for us. We've added a new careers tab on our website, and we were very, very pleased that we implemented that careers tab the first week of March. So as we went virtual, we had an additional recruitment tool that was already in place. This new careers tab since March has already had 6,597 visits. So we are able to tell our district, tell our story, and recruit people to Greenville ISD. And I know that's why, one of the reasons why our virtual career fair was so well attended. We've also signed with a new third-party administrator this year. They have had phenomenal customer service. Again, we've gotten a lot of good positive feedback. We just implemented new enrollment, and we had to do enrollment with every single employee this year, and it went off without a hitch. We couldn't have hoped for anything better or smoother. We're thrilled with that. Another recruitment tool that we have that the board actually put into place many years ago is Greenville allocates 5 local leave days to every single employee. And I'm going to go into a little more in depth about that on the next slide. All administrators attended 16 virtual career fairs this year, and that was a good thing. I hate to say anything good about the pandemic, but typically when we attend job fairs, it takes principals off campus, so we're very mindful of that. Due to everything being virtual, it was great because the principals were able to have face-to-face conversations, immediate interviews, and able to train applicants all immediately. So it was a huge asset to our district here, as well as the first annual GISD virtual career fair. We had 65 applicants and hired 5 teachers from that career, which I have not seen done in the last 10 years. It's huge to hire that many people in one spot, but I think because we hosted it, we promoted it, we sent out invites to area schools, alternative certification programs, we sent invites to every education student in nearby colleges and universities. they sought us out, so they came to us with interest, which was amazing. So I want to talk briefly about teacher local leave days. The state allocates 5 leave days to every employee in any school district in the state. It is a local school board decision to determine if they are going to offer additional local leave days. And thanks to the school board, had the foresight to allocate an additional 5 local leave days to every single employee in the district. And this is something we really want to recruit. It's not something that's publicized highly anywhere, but as you reach around and start to research this, many school districts offering 2 to 3 days. And those are districts near us that we compete against. So we're going to start promoting this and using that as a recruitment tool. Again, it's another pat on the back and a way to support our staff and say, we just appreciate what you do and we understand you have a life outside of work and we want to support you in that way. So we're looking at retention initiatives. One of our lowest scores, which was still above the average, was potential for promotion within the district. But we are still very excited to say 5 employees were promoted within the district this year. 3 were promoted into teaching positions. 1 was promoted into an assistant principal position, and 1 was promoted into a principal intern position. So it's wonderful to see people moving up within the district. We are growing our staff. We had 14 staff return to Springville in a variety of district positions. Human Resources implemented a newsletter this year, and it's been quite fun. We have avenues to have feedback on that, and staff are able to answer trivia questions, answer questions related to recent professional development. We review policies and procedures, and also make sure we are informing them on pertinent current events that are coming up. We want to continuously improve in human resources, so one of the things we're going to do proactively this year is implement those focus groups and have ongoing listening platforms so we know what's going on the campuses, we know their concerns immediately, so we can begin to turn things around in the right direction and align processes that will benefit our staff. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, so this is going to be a great opportunity. It will be a confidential atmosphere, and it's going to build a transparency and trust between central office and the campuses and departments. Any questions?
I have one. I think that is a negative on the survey that job satisfaction. There were 10.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that across the board, or did that pertain to 1 or 2 campuses?
That is an excellent question that I can pull from the raw data if they identified their campus. I can pull that and send that to you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I go back to the slide that how many people? You had it for several years, right?
Yes, 3 years. Just back at the very front. Yes.
You said we had 75 turnovers from last year. How many teachers altogether did we have last
year? Total teachers?
The reason I ask is, this is the reason for my question. You know, we got presented paper data and in January, and then we had a meeting in February where you talked about the turnover because we were concerned about the 34%. And then I have a spreadsheet that was given that told me how many teachers we had per year, and it doesn't, if it's lagging data, it doesn't jive with what I've been given for numbers. So if 35% turnover rate from 2018 2019 is lagging from 2017 2018, then that would mean that you have 78 teachers out of 400 that left. That's not 30%. So I'm just, concerned about all the data I've been given because I've been tracking it and concerned that we're losing teachers that have been in our district for a long period of time. I also would like a list of the teachers that have us and how many years they were with us. Since you've given me 3 years, I would like that for all 3 years. So my main concern is that, for one, I don't want to be misled on why teachers are leaving. When we met in June, it was a big deal that PCAA was given $10,000 bonus, and that seemed to be a reason why we were given that teachers were leaving. But now there's only one teacher that has left, maybe, not even on your spreadsheet, that possibly left with the $10,000. So I'm just super concerned because although I know that anybody that takes on a teacher role is a blessing because they're teaching to students. So, all the new teachers that are coming into our district, very happy. And I'm sure that you found people with amazing credentials. But there's a difference between a teacher in our district for many years who knows the families and the students and has developed relationships with them over a period of time versus someone that's coming in brand new. Whether or not they've had many years in a different district or whether or not there's zero experience. So I really want these numbers to somehow match or make sense. And so, it might require that we talk about it later and present it at a different time. But that's my main concern. I feel like there is a reason why our teachers are leaving that have been here a long period of time. And one of those reasons I think is, like you said, the advancement being one of the reasons. Now, you don't have anything to do with that, correct? Whether or not someone is a position in a higher, like a director position from a teacher position, you don't have anything to do with that. Is that right? Okay. So, yeah, if you could just help me with clearing those numbers up so that I would have a better idea of how many long-term teachers we've lost over the last 3 years.
Yes, I will get you that. Yes.
How many positions do we still have open?
We filled our last teaching position this week. We have an ancillary position at this point, but we have a substitute while we're trying to replace.
Questions? All right.
Thank you.
None? Yes, thank you very much. All right, moving on to B, governance. Okay, receipt and first reading of GISD Update 115 affecting local policies, 700 plus pages of reading fun.
For this, I would like to call Dr. Anderson.
Good evening, Dr. Butcher, Dr. Liggins, school board members. We do have here the first reading of TASB policy.
Anyone hear him? Can anyone hear me?
I hear Dr. Liggins, and Greg is still frozen. Get him back.
Well, he's in the building, so it should have good reception. Let's go on to the next slide. Shannon, I will, sorry, you may have to log off and log back on. Basically, an overview of some of the changes. One of the biggest one is it deletes policies that are administrative in nature and that's not required as board policies. So a lot of PASB has often put in policies that that were no longer required by the board to vote on, but were just things that administratively can be done. And so they're deleting all of those policies out of the policy handbook. Also, there's changes based on the recent court rulings, particularly the Supreme Court just made forget the whole acronym, but the LGBTQ population are now considered a protected group. And so that's one of the changes in the laws that are now in place. And Dr. Anderson, you're back. Well, I'm on your third bullet. Go for it.
Thank you very much. Sorry, my computer apparently crashed in the middle of that. So let me get my bearings here. So we have these four separate categories of changes. There were several that dealt with changes in terminology, either that or clarifying terminology and definitions throughout policies. And then several changes that came about because of COVID-19 and us being able to give instruction to students in different ways than we've done that before. So if you'll go to the next slide, please. You'll see policies that start with the letter B deal with local governance. And so in policy BF local, the PASB organization is clarifying that the district legal policies are not actually adopted by the board. That's been consistent with what the board has done. We've not been adopting those, but they changed the language to clarify the fact that you're not adopting those. Although the board will continue to receive notices of changes to legal policy and updates as we go. In addition, I want to note that the board members will be required to approve all the local policies as they have in the past when those updates come out before they can take effect.
Okay, so just to clarify, all these legal ones, we still have those changes, but it was just pro forma. We didn't have a choice but to approve it, so we just don't have to go through the motion anymore.
Exactly. Yes, because once the legislature passes that, has an effective date, it is the policy. So PASB lawyers write that, and it becomes effective on its effective date, whether you do anything or not to that. So they just went ahead and kind of removed that formality and clarified that you don't actually have to pass it. You just have to pass the local policy.
Which also means that if there's only legal policy changes, it'll be presented to you in one meeting and we won't come back the second 2 times to present it again. It's just presented and we're done. Unlike local where we have to have the 3 readings before it's adopted.
Exactly. Right. The next policy is policy DIA local. This policy is has a counterpart that goes along with it, which is going to be a student policy. So this one is the employee portion. The next one later on will become the student portion. They have the exact same changes that are made. But in DIA local, it was found through the Supreme Court case Bostic versus Clayton County, Georgia, that someone was discriminated against, had adverse employment action due to homosexuality or transgender status, and because of that, it violated Title VII and was a prohibition on sex discrimination in employment. Therefore, they've gone throughout these policies, both on the employment side and on the student side, and they've made changes to be able to make better definitions of discrimination, as well as being able to go back and put into writing the things that you cannot do in terms of discrimination based on sexual orientation. The next slide, please. So based on those, that change, that court case, there were new Title IX regulations that came out. And these Title IX regulations have several different parts to them, one of which is sexual harassment was defined in Title IX, and that definition has been included in the clarifying employee reporting requirements. And then it also added specific provisions outlining the legally required district response if an employee were to come and make an allegation of conduct that would meet the definition of sexual harassment under Title IX. Next slide, please. It also added a requirement for the superintendent to develop a Title IX formal complaint process that has to be followed if someone makes a complaint that meets that requirement. And it designates the term preponderance of evidence as the standard to determine a responsibility in formal complaints about sexual harassment. The reason preponderance of evidence is important is that it is a lesser standard than the other option that is given. So instead of having to meet that higher standard, those making the decisions under Title IX will use the preponderance of evidence standard to make sure that they are judging the person fairly in this situation. Then we go to DMD Local, which deals with professional development. It was basically procedures that were outlined there. It doesn't need to be a board policy because it's administrative procedure. So this entire local policy was deleted from this update. EI Local has to do with academic achievements, and basically it's a terminology change. In EI Local, it used to say that when awarding credit, it was based on semester. But with COVID-19, we've learned that a semester may not be a true semester anymore. And so they started using the term half of a course, half of a subject. And so they changed semester to half. And then they provided flexibility to districts on how a student is able to go back and gain the half credit that they missed. They made that change so that districts have the ability to use a variety of methods for that student to gain the other half of the course. And that is all because of COVID-19. In FD Local, it's an equal educational opportunity change, again, based on Title IX. It includes required language from the Title IX regulations. And so when they made that change, it also applies to ADA and Section 504 changes. So they're just cleaning up the policies to make sure that they all say the things that they're supposed to based on all the Title IX changes that took place. In FD Local, it's an admissions policy. And in this one, it's based on rules that became effective in March. And so it addressed transition assistance for students who are highly mobile and or homeless. And basically what it says is when a student comes into your district who's either highly mobile or they're homeless, the district will give them a fair shot at being able to gain credit based on things that they were awarded credit previously, or give them credit based on work they have done and brought into the school when they enrolled. So we're going to go back and look at their transcript and give them the credit that they deserve. FEB Local is an attendance accounting policy, and in this one, it used to be in the policy that your attendance accounting period was either second or fifth period. That language has been removed. It basically says the superintendent now has the ability to set the district's official attendance taking time policy. So it's an administrative procedure. It's no longer required to be put into board policy. FFG Local is a student welfare, child abuse, and neglect policy. And in this one, what they did is they basically combined the exhibit, which is one of the documents that go along with the policy FFG. They combined it into the actual language of the policy instead of having it as a separate item. And it says that the language that deals with child abuse and neglect now has to be included in the GISD Model Student Handbook, as well as the district's improvement plan. So it's basically putting all these, the information about child abuse and neglect in an easier to find format, and then requiring the district to put it in multiple areas that would go out to teachers and to students, parents. FFH Local, again, is a student welfare, freedom of discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. It is the student version of that employee piece that we saw earlier. So it's the exact same things that are done. It's based on the Title IX regulations. It includes the definition of sexual harassment as defined by Title IX in the policy. The next slide, please. It also indicates that the district will follow again the existing investigation process that's set up if someone makes a complaint of sexual harassment based on Title IX. And it adds provisions that outline the legally required district response based on sexual harassment complaints based on Title IX. And it adds a requirement that the superintendent will develop a Title IX formal complaint policy that must be followed. And then it also establishes that preponderance of evidence as the standard for being able to make a decision based on sexual harassment claims under Title IX. Policy FMF Local is a student activity policy. It basically was a policy that simply said that in matters of athletics and other contests that take place, we'll follow UIL rules. We know we're going to do that, so rather than having an actual district policy that says that, it removes and deletes this policy, and that becomes an administrative procedure. F&G Local, which is the student rights and responsibilities of basically student and parent complaint and grievance process. In this one, there was a terminology change. And so in the past, when someone was given a no trespass order or was removed from a campus, they had 90 days to be heard by the board if they wanted to appeal that decision. Those days that's defined in TASB policy is typically considered to be a business day or a school day. They've now gone back and redefined days as a calendar day for only this one purpose. Again, when someone is not allowed to be on campus, they've been removed or they were considered to be trespassing, then it no longer is a business day, it's a calendar day. They have 90 days when they appeal before they have to be heard. And same thing with GF Local, which Gs deal with community relations. So in this, if there's a member of the public who's been told that they can no longer be on campus for a certain reason, it changes again the wording from days, meaning business days, to calendar days. It defines that they have 90 calendar days for their appeal to be heard. Are there any questions about any of the policy updates in 115 in the first reading?
Anyone? A lot of information. Okay. Okay, we'll read over it. Have all their questions for reading number 2. Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to action and discussion items. A, consider and take action to adopt the current year tax rate by ordinance, setting out the M&O and INS rates for the 2021 school year.
Yes, for this section, I'd like to call Sherry Dotson, our Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Dr. Wiggins, President Dr. Butcher, and members of the board. Tonight, I'm here to present to you the recommendation for the adoption of the 2021 tax rate. For the maintenance operation, the rate is a little over 93 cents. That consists of the compressed rate that is set by TEA due to House Bill 3, which is a little over 87 cents, and we have our 6 golden pennies. Our interest rate is maintaining the same of a little over 23 cents. that gives us a total tax rate of about $1.17. Next slide, please. So what we're seeing here is a tax rate decrease. For taxpayers for the 2021 tax year, it's about a 6-cent decrease. Over the past year, we've seen about 13 cents. So what does that mean? That means that the taxpayer is seeing a lower rate. But what is happening to our district funding? We're actually seeing that funding state is taking that due to House Bill 3. So we're not getting our local tax dollars, we're going to get that in state funding. Next slide, please. I would kind of like to show what our tax rates look like over the past 10 years. As you can see, 2011 to 13, kind of a little stable. 2014 onwards, and we're really going to start seeing a reduction is around 2017, and then the last year is just decline. Board for always wanting tax rate and making sure that we can save taxpayers' dollars when we're able to. And also, I have for your approval, you're going to see in the packet the certified tax roll for the 2021 school year, and those values and what we expect about a 9.5% growth in our tax rate. Is there any questions?
Anyone? Question? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the tax rate of 1.168681.
So move.
I second. So, motion from Roger, a second from Tish. Yes, Tish.
Question.
Okay, Ann, you got a question?
I do. Do we need to itemize the INS, M&O, and then the total tax rate?
Is the motion you mean?
Yes.
There is an ordinance in there for setting the tax rate.
Can we, it's not gonna hurt anything to amend it, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, with Roger and Tish.
There's a clear idea, though, of what we're doing with the tax dollars.
All right, so let me restate it, see if it's okay with Roger and Tish and their motion. So the tax rate is 0.9302 for maintenance and operation, 0.238481 for interest and fees, for a total tax rate of 1.168681. Is that all right? Yes. Roger, you good? Roger? Roger.
I'm good.
All right, any other questions? All right. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, so I believe that passes unanimously by all present, which is everybody. So let's go on to C, consider approval of certification of appraisal roll for the 2021 school year received from Hunt County Appraisal District.
Oh, sorry. I kind of included that in the last thing. I just would ask the board to approve the certified tax roll for the 2021 school year. And it value we expected them to be about a 9.5% growth.
Okay, any questions about that? right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the appraisal roll ruling. Oh my goodness. Let's see, $2,799,82,293. So moved.
Second.
Who is the motion? Melissa. Melissa was, okay. And Roger was the second. Any further questions? Okay, all in favor then, say aye, raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, I believe that passes unanimously. Big mouth, that's not true. All right. Moving on. C, consider approval of resolution regarding suspending STAR testing and modify school accountability ratings for the 2021 school year.
Yes, President Butcher, for this trustee, Alika Cruz submitted this request. So at this time, I'd like to ask if she could read the resolution she's submitting.
It is a resolution, so I was able to put it out, so I read it off the computer. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Greenville Independent School District Board of Trustees resolution to suspend STAR testing and modify school accountability ratings for the 2020-21 school year. Whereas Texas public education system is responsible for educating approximately 5.4 million students and preparing them for post-secondary success. And whereas Greenville Independent School District is responsible for the education of approximately 5,500 students and preparing them for post-secondary success. And whereas on April 17th, 2020, Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued Executive Order GA-16, which stated schools shall remain temporarily closed to in-person classroom attendance by students and shall not recommence before the end of 2019-2020 school year. And whereas the issuance of Executive Order GA-16 led to the cancellation of the State of Texas Assessment of Academic Readiness, or STAR, and end of course GOC exams as a requirement for graduation from and advancement in Texas public schools for the 2019-2020 school year. And whereas the suspension of STAR and GOC for 2019-2020 widely lauded by education professionals as appropriate steps given the potential loss of educational advancement suffered by many students following extended school closures in 2020. Hold on just a second. And whereas Texas Public Schools and the Greenville Independent School District are preparing to offer both in-person and online learning options for 2020-21 school year, and whereas Texas High Stakes STAR is relied upon to provide useful information regarding which students will need additional educational support the following year, and whereas STAR results are compared to year to determine progress measure and are used to determine the student's does not meet progress measure status, as well as the calculated campus accountability rating, and whereas 2020 STAR data is unavailable for these comparisons, and whereas 2021 STAR results and data will be an unreliable and unfair evaluation of students, teachers, administrators, and schools since learning was suspended due to COVID-19. And whereas the 2020-21 school year will need to be dedicated to addressing any potential loss of learning progress suffered by students as a result of the forced cancellation of school in 2020 and the difference in learning progress between in-person and online delivery methods. And whereas teachers need to be able to devote their instructional time to addressing any potential loss of learning progress rather than preparing students for a high-stakes standardized exam. And be it therefore resolved, we, the elected Board of Trustees of Greenville Independent School District, do strongly urge Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas Education Agency, Texas Education Commissioner Mike Morath, and the Texas Legislature to cancel the STAR test for the 2020-21 school year to allow districts to focus on appropriate intervention techniques necessary to recover lost learning progress resulting from COVID-19 closures and multiple classroom delivery methods for the 2020-21 school year. And
further resolved, we, the elected board of trustees of the Greenville Independent School District, call upon Governor Gray Abbott, the Texas Education Agency, Texas Education Commissioner Mike Morath, and the Texas legislature to suspend the campus and district accountability systems linked to STAR results and to re-examine Texas public school accountability systems and develop a system based on multiple forms of assessment which do not require high-stakes standardized testing and which more accurately reflect a broad range of student learning. Adopted this 18th day in August 2020 by the Greenville Independent School District Board of Trustees. Thanks very much. Any questions, comments?
I have a couple. Do we know do we have any plans to give another type of assessment at the end of the year to kind of tell us where our kids are?
When you say the end of the year,
Well, yeah.
like if the STAR went away, would we get something? Yes, we do. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
So
we would be able to.
We would still test our students to determine where they are at the end of the year. It would not be a STAR test, but it would be a standardized assessment that would be locally created, like all of the other 9 weeks that test.
Okay. We still have to have something that shows where our kids are.
Yes, ma'am.
What they gained this year or lost. Hopefully gained.
Well, I believe it was a well-written, well-thought-out resolution, and I just agree with it. Nothing this year has been what it normally is. So we can't hold the kids responsible for a test that was created whoever.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'm going to assume that Lisa will make the motion. Hello? Yes, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Get to it. Seems appropriate. I make the motion to pass the resolution to suspend STAR testing for the 2021 school year and ask the Texas Commissioner to look at other testing alternatives outside of STAR going forward. I second. Okay. Now, are we gonna? Is that how you want the the board action worded versus what was in the book? Read what it says. It says, I move to approve the resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Greenville Independent School District regarding suspending STAR testing and modified school accountability ratings for the 2021 school year. I can read that if you want me to read that, or what you just said. Want me to read it? It just wasn't pulled up on my computer. I have to. Yeah, I got you. I just wasn't sure if somebody got all your wording down, since this one was already written down. So you'll make that motion, Lisa? Yes, ma'am. Do I have a second? I second. Thank you, Tish. Any other discussion? Now that I can see everybody. All right.
Discussion. I just want to say thank you to Lisa for taking the time to come up with a resolution.
Yes, definitely. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you all. That resolution will be sent after signed to our PEA Commissioner, our State Representative, Dan Flynn, our State Senator, Bob Hall, our Governor and Lieutenant Governor. In addition to that, we'll send it to our U.S. State Representative, our 2 Texas U.S. Senators, and our Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. And we will be on record with all of those agencies that Greenville ISD School Board has passed such a resolution. So thank you again to all of you, particularly Ms. Cruz, for looking out for our teachers and students during this difficult time.
All right. Moving on, I think we've got some housekeeping related to elections that we have to adjust.
Yes.
Commitment to order of election for November 3rd, 2020 general election.
Yes, for this I call Helen Williams, but before we get started, so I will not forget to say it, and she'll probably say it as well. Every single board member needs to come in to central office tomorrow or Thursday to sign these notices. It requires the signature of every school board member. If approved.
Okay.
Thank you. President Butcher, Dr. Liggins, and members of the board, the next 5 items look familiar. They should, because you've already done these, but what happened was 2 things changed since the special meeting where we looked at all of the election paperwork. Governor Abbott passed a proclamation extending the days for early voting. So those have been changed in all of the paperwork for the orders and notices for both the postponed election and the special election, as well as the contract with Hunt County Voter Administration. Also, the early voting locations changed. So previously, Hunt County Voter Administration was going to hold early voting at their office, and now they will be holding it in 2 locations, the Fletcher Warren Civic Center and also the Caddo Mills ISD Administration Office. So all of the paperwork reflects that, and those are the changes that are in the next 5 items. Would you like me to go through them one at a time quickly?
You go through them quickly, and then we'll just go through them quickly also after we explain them all.
Okay, perfect. So the first item is the amendment to the order of the election for the general election. This is the postponed election from May, and that is for places 2, 3, and 4. And the administration recommends the ordering of the election as presented, reflecting the new early voting days proclaimed by the governor and the 2 new early voting locations.
Can I just ask a question? I'm just curious. Why would, for our board of trustees, why would they be going to Caddo Mills to vote?
Dr. Liggins had that very question, and this was a little bit of a surprise to us as well. At first, the thinking was to have it only at the Fletcher Warren Civic Center in order to provide more social distancing, because it's a larger facility. Then we received an email from the Voter Administration Administrator for Hunt County, Jose Martinez, simply stating that they had added a second location. And I did not ask for his rationale. We simply adjusted the paperwork.
But I assume because it's early voting for all of Hunt County, it's anyone. So our ballots will be there as well as anyone in Hunt County's ballot.
So we're allowed to vote at each place. Yes, that is correct. In early voting, you can go to either place.
Huh, okay. Well, that's kind of new. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Very good.
So the administration recommends the ordering of the election as presented to reflect the new changes.
I had somebody ask me, why are we putting the school board election on a partisan ballot? I don't think that's what we're doing. Will it be a separate ballot for the school board election?
No, ma'am, as I understand it, when you present your voter registration card or your license, they have a ballot prepared. And in our school district, as you know, we have single member districts.
Yes.
So it does complicate for sure the design of the ballot because they have to have one for every district that is on the ballot, but it's still one continuous ballot. It isn't sorted by Republican or Democrat because we are nonpartisan as a district. It would appear on either one.
So, all of this is not a separate ballot for the school board. All of them will be on the general ballot.
That's correct. If things go as they should, then what they do is they check your card and they note which district you live in. And you would be given the ballot for all of the elections that apply to national, county, state, as well as school, city, other voting districts. And those should be pre-sorted and organized at the early voting locations.
I have a question about just opening to the two locations, Fletcher Warren and Caddo. Why is it that we can't have this at all of the locations in the city? I don't understand. Ages to pick where?
That is just for early voting.
Okay.
On regular election day, all the precincts will be open. But those two places are just for early voting.
Okay, but they all have to vote. So their district is a normal polling place, once it's the normal election, not early voting.
You should be able to have the proper ballot for early voting and on election day. It should be the identical ballot.
Okay, but I'm asking about the location.
So either you could go to either early voting location and it should be the same ballot. So for example, if you live in district 2, 3, or 4, or in this case 5, because there's a special election, they will look you up by your district and then produce the ballot that has the corresponding candidates.
Typically, like just talk not about early voting, but mostly about the normal election time, like not early. So would they still only be able to vote at Fletcher Warren and
No. You'll still go to wherever you normally go to vote on that day.
I remember when I was on the ballot, that's not how it worked out.
We've had several discussions about that. We're hopeful that it will be a smoother process.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be, you have to go over to this specific place. You know, we should be able to go to wherever we normally go to vote for our district.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. And we contract with Hunt County to do all of that. The same individual is in charge now that was in charge during your election. So, yeah.
I know another reason why I'm saying that is because, you know, Tim is on the city side and they were going to put the bond for the street on just relocation. So they had to go back and forth and insist that the bond be available to anyone who goes to their polling place and not just, you know, because then if you go to a polling place that you normally go to, but it's not on that ballot, you have to go to the second place to vote. And that's going to reduce the amount of people that actually do. So actually was added to all of the polling places, and I just want to make sure that the same goes for.
That's our understanding.
Mm-hmm. And we have impressed upon the voter administration and even had a meeting with Judge Stovall, I did, and other election officials airing our concerns. And I would say an opportunity to sort of check would be during early voting.
Okay. Moving on.
Okay. So I think we need a series of votes on this, and the first item is the amendment for the order of the election for the general election, places 2, 3, and 4.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. There's a motion from Ann, second from Alisa. Is further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. The next is approval of the order of special election for Board of Trustees, place 5. That's good.
Dr. Butcher, I believe the next item is the notice for the November 3rd.
Yes, sorry. Approval of amendment notice for November 3rd, 2020 general election. Your motion. That's Trina. And second, Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously. The next is an amendment of order of special, the amendment to order of special election for place 5 for November 3rd, 2020. Do I have a motion for that? Melissa, second. Rogers, second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. The last one is amendment to the notice of special election for place 5 on November 3rd, 2020. Okay, Christina, is there a second?
Second.
And got a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I think we got through that. That was D, E, F, and G. Now we're to H. Consider approval of amended contract with Hunt County Voter Administration to conduct the general and special 2020 Board of Trustees election.
Oh, are you there?
I'm here. Oh, would you like me to read the recommendations?
No, I guess we can. This is introduce what it is. It's the contract. Again, as we just mentioned, we contract with Hunt County Voter Administration to do our election. So
That's changing from the one we did in May.
yes, we have to change it due to the change in dates, all of that, and we
Okay.
like the new information.
Reiterating our contract with that. So the motion that I would entertain is that we contract with the Hunt County Voter Administration to conduct the general election for place 3 and 4 and the special election for place 5. So your motion.
So moved.
And has the motion to have a second.
Second.
Roger, seconding. Further discussion on that one. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we have a group of folks to consider. We can take action on this or we cannot take action on this. You see in your board book, we administrated the folks we're considering: Kevin Carbo from the P, Stephanie Odell from McKinney, Jeff Tyndall from Community, Jeff Strickland from the Land. Does anyone have a recommendation of a candidate to endorse or any discussion thereof?
Yes, I read over all of it, and I thought maybe Mr. Barbo might be the best option.
Any other opinions? Trina, are you making that motion that we endorse Mr. Carbo? Do I have a second? Hearing no second, I believe that means that I agree.
Motion.
Motion failed. We will just not take further action on that. Okay, so moving on to discussion items. We have the GISD Health Center partnership with CareBuy.
Yes, thank you, first of all, so much for their patience. Here we have Mr. David Gish will introduce the folks from CareBuy.
Good evening, everybody. We appreciate the time that we've been allotted to talk to you about our school-based site here at Greenville ISD. It's been a long time in the making, but President Dr. Butcher, thank you. Dr. Liggins, also thank you for giving us this opportunity. We've had three wonderful individuals that we've been working very closely with from CareBuy to do the major part of the presentation, and we'll have questions at the end of the session. The representatives for CareBuy who will be addressing you this evening is Ms. Casey Smith, Mr. Michael Glass, and Ms. Michelle Carter. Thank you to them taking the time out to be with us this evening and answer the questions and give you this presentation of what we're proposing as far as our school-based site there.
Well, thank you, everyone. Can everyone hear us okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Michael Glass, and I'm with CareBuy. And first off, we want to thank you for your time tonight, and also commend your the staff that we've been working with. They're extraordinary staff that we've had an opportunity to really get to know over the past really 6, 8, 12 months. Some of you have already heard a little bit about this presentation. We presented about a year ago an informational setting about it, and you may have heard some of this information we're about to go over. For those that are new to it, we're going to start at the beginning and get everyone caught up on the information. And for those who have heard it already, there's actually some information that's changed in a different model that we're looking into and proposing tonight. I wanted to give you a little information about CareBuy. CareBuy is a nonprofit community health center, or you may also hear it referred to as a federally qualified health center. We're located, our main administrative office is in Greenville in Hunt County, and we actually serve 6 counties that surround Hunt County as well. Everyone probably is very familiar with the private physician's office or a pediatrician's office. CareBuy provides pretty much the same medical care, but what makes them different is a few things. One being they're managed by a board of directors, and 51% of those board of directors are actually consumers of the services. They actually have to consume those services, or their children or a family member, mostly children. With that, the premise of having 51% of your board being consumers of the service is to make sure that the decisions made for the organization are community-based and for the benefit of the patient. The second thing is, hereby in all community health centers offers a sliding fee for those who are uninsured or underinsured. That sliding fee is based upon the family size and income of individuals. And as we've heard mentioned multiple times tonight, Greenville has a very diverse population, and it is a much needed service here in Hunt County. So on the next slide, and I apologize, I see whenever the slides came over, some of the formatting didn't make it over, so I apologize. It's just a white screen and not really much color on there. On our slides that we have printed off, we have color on our end. I'm not going to read through every one of these points. I'll let you read through them, but a couple of things that I do want to point out is that a school-based health center is not a new concept. It's not new in the state of Texas, and it's not new nationwide. For this area, it is new. We have opened and partnered with Commerce ISD as of July, August timeframe of 2019 is whenever we ventured out into the school-based realm. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a couple minutes. The other thing I wanted to point out is 62% of the school-based sites serve populations in addition to students due to access barriers, especially in rural areas. So the school-based site we have in Commerce and also the school-based site that we're proposing for Greenville will also allow access to family members of students. And then 82% are located on school property. On the next slide, you'll see the benefits for school-based care. I mentioned before that we started with Commerce ISD. That's kind of where we ventured out with school-based care. With that, we were hoping, and in our last presentation with Greenville ISD, we would have a lot more data to share with you with the progress. But unfortunately, as y'all have mentioned multiple times tonight, COVID-19 really shut everything down in March of 2020. So our data is, from August through February. So we don't really have much data that we were able to go on from Commerce ISD. And a lot of our operations this year since March have really transitioned to COVID testing, also protecting our staff, protecting our patients, protecting our community, and really making sure that we're responding to the pandemic in not only Hunt County, but all other counties around us that we serve. So in preparing for this presentation and preparing for this project, as we get later in the presentation, we're going to talk about how this model has changed a little bit. Mainly, one of the contributing factors for that is because of COVID. But as you can see here, some of the school-based site benefits are a significant increase in attendance. Those students with asthma had reduced hospitalizations, and also those students without a school-based site lost 3 times more seat time. It increased compliance for recommended immunizations and other preventative services. Reduction in rates of school suspension or high school non-completion, increased grade point averages, increased parental work time, and reduced child care. That is due, in fact, to where parental consent can actually be kept on file. So whenever a student presents or is needing medical care, a student can be seen without the parent having to take off of work and getting that student to the healthcare provider. Obviously, with COVID-19, you may think COVID-19 may have complicated all of that, but in essence, there are some strategies we've been able to find with working with Commerce ISD to hopefully make that a little easier. Due to the fact that the state legislature has given a waiver to healthcare providers in order to see patients via telehealth, those with Medicaid. And then also most, not all, but should say some private insurances also allow virtual visits as well. So with our relationship with Commerce ISD, we were able to work with them, and they have an area where if there is a symptomatic patient, we can see them via a telehealth or a virtual visit with a provider, and then if testing is needed, what we are doing with as much as possible is actually completing that testing in the vehicle. So Commerce ISD is actually they're contracted to transport the students, but obviously in the situation of a symptomatic patient, they have made other arrangements with obviously calling the parent, and then the parent would be responsible to get the student to the health center site in order to be tested in the parking lot. In most cases, a lot of it can be done virtually, and also the testing can be completed in the vehicle. But if in the independent judgment of the practitioner, they need to be seen, then other arrangements are made. Also increased awareness of student health as well. Some other benefits of partnering with a community health center, you can go ahead on to the next slide, is we can help facilitate enrollment in state programs for coverage because we have outreach and enrollment assistants on site that can help. We've talked about reduces barriers, time, cost, and other barriers. It also increases the adolescent's responsibility and awareness of their health. Some of that is the provider can actually do programs. If the school is willing to do this, the provider can do programs at the school to talk about health-related things, and just really raise health awareness in each of the schools. Also, it can help reduce transmission of the vaccine-presentable diseases. And it allows GISD and Caravide to really share some goals for the overall health of the students. And that goes into the really last point, that this is a true community healthcare model of care, and that's what community health centers are built by and driven by, is this model of care. Some other benefits, again, we talked about the education, where we can do campus education by the provider, and also staff at school can focus on their jobs. While I commend each and every one of y'all for really putting forth the effort of making sure there's a nurse on every campus, the nurse's license can only go so far, and they really potentially need a practitioner's help. So this collaboration could be very helpful for you and your students. And our overall goal and for the community, for the school district, and for each of our communities is a healthier and more productive community. We have listed here the core competencies of a school-based center. Obviously, access, it should be student-focused, integrated with the school. So there's a lot of meetings and there's a lot of collaboration between the two. Accountability to make sure it's working appropriately. School wellness, coordination of systems, and then also the sustainability of the program to continue from year to year. Here's some examples, school health outcomes on the next slide. Decrease school absences due to illness, increase your school readiness, also diagnosis and treatment of some of your chronic illnesses, your obesity, your hypertension, and your diabetes. Also your acute illnesses, your sinus infections, common colds, that kind of stuff. Diagnosis and treatment and referral if needed for behavioral health needs, be it ADD, ADHD, or depression. And also, some of these school health outcomes is really what we were looking to see with Commerce ISD to see how well we did over that year. But obviously, it was interrupted in the March timeframe. So we weren't able to really get a good gauge of how much progress we made in that year. But we're still going to be tracking it and working towards that for this next school year. And on this list as well, we're also doing diagnosis and testing of COVID-19 as well. So as I explained before, previously when we had spoken at the board meeting, the model that we had proposed was that the location of the school-based center was going to be on one of the school campuses, and campuses to this one location. Honestly, for many factors, we're proposing a change from an on-campus model to actually house the school-based center in our current pediatric building, which is located at 3005 Joe Ramsey Boulevard. Some of the reasons for that, COVID-19 really significantly challenged the implementation timeline for this. And this opening it in our current Care Pediatric Center, it would allow us to have the site open by October 2020. It's also very centrally located in Greenville, right off of Joe Ramsey. Basically, it's at Joe Ramsey and 34. We won't have any need for fundraising for renovation or operational costs, except for possible assistance for uninsured students. Later on in the presentation, I'm going to show you we actually received a grant to integrate, and Careby's CEO, Michelle Carter, is going to talk about this in a minute. We received a grant to integrate dental into our pediatric medical program. And in that grant, it allowed us to actually put in 4 new rooms for medical or for pediatric access. And 2 of those is our proposal to change over to school-based exam rooms. And then also having it in this building, it increases access to services that would not be available in an on-campus setting, specifically access to dental care and also behavioral health. I talked about it centrally located. It's also more conducive for future expansion. So currently we're looking at 2 days a week, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And if we ever, determine and move more towards a 3, 4, or 5 day work, 3, 4, or 5 days worth of a school-based center, it would be more conducive to go ahead and do it in that facility because the space is already available. It also guarantees access for immunizations for this coming school year. With a new location, it actually takes us 60 to 90 days before we can get the state vaccines that we need. In our current center, we already have all those vaccines already. So as I discussed before, the model would be 2 days per week designated for school referrals and appointments. One thing that we did want to mention, we can be flexible on that. The MOU that has been presented to you, it does specifically say 2 days a week currently. Our flexibility in that is because we currently have pediatricians and nurse practitioners in that building, and if they have slots available on days other than those 2 days per week, we can get someone or get a student filled into those slots. Also, we talked about the designated GISD exam rooms, and further on in the presentation, I will show you what the layout of the floor plan actually looks like. We would have a pediatric nurse practitioner with appropriate oversight working in this program with appropriate support staff, and would have, as we discussed before, coordinated school and health outcomes, and then a coordinated consent for fast service for students and parents. And I've asked Michelle Carter, Careby's CEO, to really talk about, on the next slide, the integrated pediatrics concept.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit to the history of how we developed our pediatric department and how we got to an integrated service line. We, as community health centers, most of our focus has been on trying to break down barriers that our patients have for receiving healthcare services. And those barriers in our community could be a lot of things. What we see mostly is financial barriers. We see transportation barriers, social factors such as housing and different things like that affect someone's ability to receive services. So what we do on a pretty regular basis is we do a community needs assessment where we assess what the needs are and what needs are not being met or what needs are being met in healthcare for our community. And one of the things that community health centers is really built on is just trying to put as much under one roof as we can get under one roof, so that when a patient comes in to our health center location, they can receive as many services as possible in that one trip. And so if you come to our community health center for primary care services, say you come in to see your doctor for your management of your diabetes, You also have access to a social worker if you have social service needs. You also have access to a pharmacy, and now we have behavioral health services in our clinics. And so you have access to all of those things under one roof. And in a lot of ways, it helps our patients to access those services that might be problematic otherwise. So when we talked about growing our pediatric department, we really wanted to make our pediatric center integrated like that, like our other healthcare centers where we see adult patients. So what we've done is we've housed our dental center in a newly located lease space that was adjacent to our pediatric center, and we opened up that space to be all one space. And so now, as a patient of our pediatric center, you have access to not only medical services, but you can also get dental services under that same roof. And that service line is all integrated together. And you can also receive behavioral health services. We are currently interviewing for a license, either a professional counselor or a licensed clinical social worker, so that we can provide behavioral health services to those pediatric patients as well. So we also have enrollment assistance under that one roof as well. And Michael mentioned that when our pediatric patients come in, their parents bring them in, we can help them get enrolled in insurance coverage if they're not already enrolled. That might be insurances through the marketplace. That might be Medicaid, whatever is available that we can help them with. And so this really sets up a good setting for us to work with the health or with the school district, because we can work with you guys on what kind of outcomes you want for the students, what kind of outcomes we want to work towards. We can work together as a team and provide multiple services under one roof for the students of GISD, and hopefully it will be, a very convenient resource for those students to receive services.
And picture's worth 1,000 words. And as you can see there at the bottom of the slide, the student for the school-based center, the student's always the center of everything that we do. And for every one of our practices, the patient is always the center of everything we surround the way we think. And that's going to be the same way for the school-based center. On the next slide, you'll see what I was talking about with regards to the layout. Over to the left, that's the pediatric center. There we go. Over, on the left, where there's no shaded background, that's our current pediatric center. And Joe Ramsey is basically runs directly up the left-hand side of that. As you go over to the right, the yellow shaded section is the new dental center. It actually just opened 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago tomorrow it opened. And then the green shaded area is the 4 rooms are actually the new access for medical. The last room is actually a storage room. So we're looking at the last 2 medical rooms actually being for Greenville ISD school-based care right there. And we've talked with Helen too about they can be outfitted with Greenville ISD information, pictures. We can work through what that looks like. Additionally, we've updated the front windows of the building, and we're also working towards putting school-based on the front of the building if the board so decides to move forward with this partnership and the MOU. We would also be adding school-based to the front of the building. On the next slide, you'll see the revenue sources that we accept at CareVide. As I explained, as a community health center, we see the uninsured. We also see those with private insurance, Medicaid, CHIP. As we explained before, going with this model, it will not require any fundraising in order for operational costs to be covered or for renovation costs. All of that's being covered now because we're in our own building and we don't have to hire more staff to staff this school-based center. But one thing that we did that we can be looking for jointly with GISD is for funding for the uninsured kids who may be coming. On the next 2 slides, you'll see the duties of each partner. For CareVide, we would provide the staffing, also the supplies and equipment for the services in the room. We also have malpractice coverage. As a federally qualified health center, we're covered under FTCA, which stands for the Federal Tort Claim Act, and that's our malpractice coverage. We also provide all the data system, the electronic health record, and other systems as needed, and also work on marketing and outreach for the students as well, to let them know of the services that will be provided. As far as Greenville ISD's duties, coordination of transportation of students to and from Fairby Pediatrics. And I want to pause on this one just for a minute and talk about the, like I explained with COVID-19 with Commerce ISD, there's going to, if approved, there'll have to be conversation with the administration and with Noel and others as to how that would occur with symptomatic or possibly symptomatic patients and how that needs to look. So we're open to those discussions. Also, assistance with obtaining and maintaining the parental consent form, a referral procedure for the school nurses to refer students to the school-based services, and then also to encourage consistent, appropriate referrals to school-based services from the school staff to make sure that continues past the, the first couple of months of school to make sure that continues. And then also marketing outreach to students from Greenville ISD's side as well. As far as the next steps for this program, obviously it's coming to you tonight in order to hear about it, hear about the project, and be able to ask questions. Also, you have the MOU as well. So after board approval from Greenville ISD, Fairby's board also needs to approve this project and the MOU, and then the MOU can be signed. And then it starts the implementation phase. Either through the implementation, here's kind of a couple of things. We've set weekly operational calls. There's a lot of details that need to get figured out. We're looking at an October 1st start date at this point. Also, the creation of the referral process, the development of the plan to distribute and collect parental consent forms. The parental consent forms, they're already created. And then also the marketing and outreach plan to make sure that the community knows about the school-based center, knows how to utilize it, and just learns more about it. And then, of course, sets the schedule for opening on that. And then the next slide is just if you have any questions. Mr. Gish or Noel or Helen, is there anything else you'd like to add, or Casey or Michelle? We tried to give you a very small and succinct presentation, but hopefully it was informative, and would be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Well, I would like to thank you guys for doing this. I know we started talking about it a couple of years ago, actually. And then Commerce jumped in front of us, so we put it on pause while you guys dealt with opening that up, and then, of course, COVID happened. So thank you so much for continuing to work with us. I feel this is something that our community definitely needs and will benefit from.
Absolutely.
Question?
At night or the weekend, Monday, all or they
After hours?
yeah.
We do have an after hours line, so the school-based site will be open. We'll have to determine those hours. Obviously, that's some operational stuff. I would assume it would be open until 5. 2 nights, our pediatric center is also open late, but we also have after hours as well. And with that after hours, we have providers on call. So if something comes up, the provider can be contacted. And depending on what the symptoms are or what's going on, obviously they may refer you to the hospital, but yes, that is available.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you very much for all of that great information, and we look forward to our partnership moving forward.
That's great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we're moving on to the consent agenda. A monthly budgetary financial report. B, consider approval of vendor list. C, consider approval of sex teacher evaluation support test list. D, approval of bids on resale properties. And E, board minutes for July 14, 2020, July 21, 2020, July 23, 2020, and August 3, 2020. Does anyone need any of those removed? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I think that was Tish. Oh, Roger. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? I believe that passes unanimously. I think I may be having some signal issues. Please. So we'll move on to open forum and public comment for non-agenda items. Do we have any of that?
Shannon?
No, I don't believe. I'm pulling it up right now.
No? Okay.
Computer's struggling.
We don't have any of that.
It's loading right now. It's just taking a second. It doesn't look like we do not have anything.
Okay. And at this time,
There's a comment from Aletha Cruz.
I don't think if you can hear me, then it's probably not going to be okay. You can hear me? I can hear you. Okay. Maybe you just can't hear me. So I was getting confused with part of the meeting. Is this where I would bring us something as well, or is it just public? Can we go into closed session? Look.
Kim,
Yes.
can you hear Alisa?
No.
She had
I
asked,
hear you.
she had asked, is this the time that she can make a comment? Can the board members make a comment, or is it just for the public?
I'm going to disconnect and reconnect.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me better now?
Guys, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I'm so sorry. I don't know, just all of a sudden messed up. Go ahead.
I just said, is this where I would, like, is it comment for me or just public?
I think you want to go into closed session.
Okay.
Okay? So let's go into closed session at 8:25. And then you're gonna handle.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let me text Shannon. I say, wow, that was quick.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Okay, we're gonna have to come back into closed session deal.
Oh, okay. Yes, I got everything turned back on.
Closed meeting for the purposes authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.01071, El Sequitur concerning any and all purposes permitted by the Act, including but not limited to the following sections and purposes. Number one, Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with the board attorney and all subjects authorized by law. A, consider legal advice regarding personnel issues. Consider legal advice regarding the agenda items. 2, Texas Government Code Section 551.074, for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, ratification of employee contracts, resignation, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, termination, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. A, closed session pursuant Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the appointment, employment, ratification of employee contracts, resignation, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, termination of a public officer or employee. So we are now in closed session at 8:29.
trying to start biting ankles already.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm getting jumpy. My screen's getting jumpy again. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. You can hear me. So we're back in open session at 8:51. First item we need to address is approval of the new hires. Do I have a motion to approve professional new hires as discussed? I'm making a motion. Tish made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roger? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Item B. Entertain a motion to approve the employment contracts of employees as discussed. Do I have a motion? A motion. That's Trina? Yes. Do you have a second? Yes. I'll second it. Then you're the second.
Trina second, I think Mr. Rackley moved.
Thank you. All right, y'all. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ah. All right. I think I'm back. Let's take that vote one more time. So we had a motion and a second, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That motion passes unanimously. All right. We're now at future agenda items.
I do have some answers to a couple of questions. The Heimlich maneuver is part of the CPR training, so they will have that. And this time last year, 3 weeks before school started, we were at 38% of our parents registered, so we're in much better shape. Mind you, we started school 4 weeks later too.
Dr. Ligon,
Yes, ma'am.
have you got an update on the road construction in front of Bowie? How is it going to be finished by the time school starts?
I have not. Have you heard anything about that, Dr. Anderson?
Yes, I spoke with the engineer in charge of that the other day. They were actually ahead of schedule. They are scheduled to be finished by the last day of August. So unless something's changed, I spoke to them, I think it was the end of last week. So unless something's changed, then they're all ahead of schedule. Now, the problem's going to be is they're going to keep moving to different intersections on Stonewall. So we should be able to take Poplar to get back and forth, to Wesley or one of the other streets to get the students where they need to go.
And Bowie so far has a pretty large amount of students coming, so we'll see. Sharon, do you have that data? The amount for Bowie so far?
I do, but can I tell you that Chief Rodriguez has said that they told him today is September 3rd, and they're moving north, just for the record. So bear with me, and I will have your new numbers. Which one did you want, sir?
Bowie at home or at school?
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Bowie is, so I have it by grade level, you know that. So
Shannon, let Dr. Butcher back in.
Okay, so kinder through second, it is 70+% at school. 30. And then 3 through 5, third grade is 73%, and fourth and fifth are at 58%. And we're still waiting on 100 more kids to report every week.
Oh, it'll be pretty crowded, so. And especially with so many parents saying they're bringing their kids and not taking the bus, we definitely want to get on top of that. Can you hear us?
All right, sorry, y'all. Yeah, I'm kind of back. Where are we? Future meetings?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about future meetings, Dr. Liggins.
Well, one meeting I would like to have perfectly on Monday to discuss some construction issues that we voted on earlier with a amendment to the contract that's needed. I propose Monday at 5:30.
Really? Monday at 5:30?
Yes.
Okay.
If there's no objection, I'll.
Obviously, my connection is really bad. 5:30 on Monday.
I'll tentatively do that, and we'll send out an email to make sure everyone's on board. Did you get that, Butcher?
Got it.
Okay. That's all.
Okay. Are we all done? Is there any further business to come before this board? Other than Kim's going to be at the office for the next meeting. Okay, I'm going to say we are adjourned at
8:59.
Thank you.